soldiers that would die in the field, well, most of them were accounted for.
We had oppressive prisoner of war camps.
Well, this is way back in the 1800s. It was a common practice.
I'll put you guys back on the screen. This is Jonathan. He wants to speak about what we're talking about. Say hello to Jonathan.
Hey, Jonathan.
I don't want to quibble over numbers, but I realize that historians attribute a large number of killings to Chairman Mao during the Cultural Revolution in China.
Yes.
And even before World War II started, Stalin had decimated his officer corps because of paranoia about betrayals and so forth. There were lots of politically originating. The thing that scares me about today, especially with Turkey, which has a history of genocide against the Armenians in the time around 1910, I believe. Turkey today is also punishing one of its internal minorities, the Kurds, which around the region are a U.S. ally, puts us in an awkward position because Turkey being a NATO ally. And so I feel like people have to talk about these things, as unpleasant as it is. I was glad to see you guys talking about it this morning. But I really think that it's an issue that's worthy of getting our facts straight, at least trying to get our facts straight, and because it's so important, because it is true, we don't want to revisit this dynamic that produced this sort of monstrous behavior. That's all I really had to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Appreciate for the call.
The idea that it goes on, I think, is an important one. When Joseph Stalin died, he was in the process of starting up again show trials, but in this case, he was going after Jewish doctors, and it was looking like there was going to be another case of murdering a lot of Jews in the Soviet Union, and then
Which had been
Fortune-
the official way to handle Jews for thousands of years in the Soviet Union,
Yes.
in Russia.
One of the things that I have always find it, forgive me for the lack of use,
On the screen is
the
an
word.
example. On the screen is an example of government kills people over the years.
Wow.
That's not surprising, considering of those regimes. One of the things that I wanted to finish my thought, forgive me for using the word fascination, is that why is it European nations have always have something against the Israelite or actually Jewish folks? That's one of the things that I have always find it difficult to comprehend. I've read so many histories regarding to it. It seems like the Jewish population to be the target, the punchline at all these political talking point. If anything goes wrong, it's always Jewish. It's always the Jewish people.
Not Christian evangelicals or a lot of Republicans in the United States. I think Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the greatest leaders in the world, but I don't think President Obama thinks so.
I don't think so, but I think Cam hits an important point. I would say that England and the United States, although the English were pretty ferocious in putting down the Scots and then putting down the Irish,
Including Indians in the subcontinent.
Yeah, but I'm saying within their own territory. But
Correct.
There's a lot of groupism in Europe where you're not part of my group, therefore I don't like you. I mean, you can look at Italy.
Like the
Italy is not a
gangs in Lowell.
Italy is not a country. It's a collection of ethnic groups that happen to be in the same area.
But that's Lowell.
But not in Lowell, we don't kill people.
Sometimes we do.
Sometimes, yeah, but
I don't know, Joe. I respectfully disagree for you to compare a nation state to a city state, to a city. We were talking about a gang of individuals who find it fascinations in violence. whereas a group of nation wanted to combine and have a much more cohesive commonalities in terms of a language. These guys don't care about the language, don't care about the culture. They care about their own advancement territory and annihilate.
So they're
those
like
who
the
oppose.
mafia, I guess.
Well,
Correct.
when I said 27 million people, that was Europe alone. That was just Europe. John put on something that said 50 million people throughout the world, which I'm sure is right. But I got
It's off the internet, so you can.
I got my figure off of the History Channel, so I don't know.
I get a lot of my history off the History Channel. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
got
if
my
it's
figure
right.
off the History Channel.
But the thing is, the United States is somewhat unique in its faltering ability to integrate different groups.
What about the American Indian?
We're not. What about them?
There's
Well, we killed 'em.
20 million of them were supposedly here
We
when we
killed
got here.
them,
and they
Cliff.
killed them.
We wiped them out. We sent the
Wait.
army to shoot them.
We did not wipe them out. They exist today.
Well, Jews exist today.
Yes.
Well, George, the United States lands actually in the continent of 48 state itself is still being leased from the American Indians. And that's why we as any local law enforcement cannot go into any of the Indian territory for any infractions of any law. If any local or the size of their community or the size of the Indian land has been designated already, the FBI are the one can only go in there because individually these are their sovereign location that the American government cannot go in there.
If I
and
stab
dictate.
you at Mohegan Sun,
No. You cannot compare the Mohegan Sun as one of the sovereign nation to.
I thought you had to be a sovereign nation
You
to
had-
get.
I thought
George,
you-
on the Indians,
thought so.
I call it the Indian genocide. Some say we killed 100 million Indians.
Okay, that's a huge number. That equals Stalin probably. And
Well, the number that I heard when I was teaching was that there were 20 million killed, but I don't know, it could be 100 million, John.
what's 100 million, 20 million?
Yeah, exactly.
five?
Right. My question has always been, who did they push off the land?
It's a good question.
Who are you referring to?
The
Well, that's your
people
assignment.
that are now the American Indians. Who did they push off the land?
I
Who
don't
was
think
here
they-
before them?
Well, there's always a power struggle against any type of communal group of folks that wanted to form society and always believed that their society is much more superior than the other. The question is really, it is rather interesting to ask is that who did they push? Well, it's not the question on who they push. We need to ask ourselves, do we believe as a human being are much more superior than any other ethnic group in the world here? The answer is yes. I do not care where they're coming from. Deep down inside, always the individual, once they start forming an opinion of themselves, will always looking at one group or another as superior than that or inferior if need be. And that's why the struggle of power to dominate the superior from the inferior and vice versa.
We could go back to the Crusades if we wanted
We could
to.
go-
No,
back
no,
to
but
the
I think
Crusades.
that we're here at an interesting point, and that is, I think in the United States, the issue is not that you're in that group or this group or the other group. It's that you have the opportunity to join a group and be part of that group regardless of your ethnicity or your race or whatever, because we try and orient on ideas in the United States.
Is that the way it is in Turkey?
This is not the way it is in Turkey. It's not the way it is in much of the world. But here, you can say, you know, I think Bernie has got the best ideas in the world. I'm going to be for Bernie. And it doesn't matter where you came from, who your parents were, and what you do in life. It's the ideas. And you support those ideas, then you go to the ballot box and you support them in the ballot box. Others of us believe in sort of a Republican bottom-up approach as opposed to a Bernie
Trickle
top-down, yeah. And so Cam and I are brothers in this. We're connected. We are following the same ideas. It's us as Republicans. It's not the fact that
The
Cam grew up in
Republicans.
where? Washington, and I grew up in
Wait a second, Cliff.
New Jersey.
Cut
Take it
him
I
out.
off.
grew up in Lohawk.
Can I just barge in for 1 second, okay?
What?
Bombings in Afghanistan, okay? Why don't we see this footage of what we just did with our wicked nice warplanes? Why don't we see this footage?
I do.
And this should be on ABC News. This is the people we blew up today. And I just don't get it. Why? And this is what's going on over in the Middle East. Well, you know, if you blew up, if this was your section of town, they blew up Lower Belvedere, and that's what it looked like. And they killed my wife, and they killed my kids and my grandkids. I would have no trouble doing this to them.
Yeah,
What kind of logic is? Don't they understand when we do this? You're gonna get some pushback from the people whose lives you've ruined.
Well, when the New Jersey was stationed in Lebanon, off of Lebanon, and was firing shells into Lebanon, and the Lockerbie, Scotland happened, when they arrested the person who planted the bomb in the Lockerbie, Scotland, the plane over Lockerbie, Scotland, they asked him, "Why did you do this?" And he said, "Because the New Jersey went to my home and hit my home with a 16-inch shell and annihilated my wife, my children, my grandparents, my parents, and I thought it was the least I could do to get back at them." And it's an interesting point.
This is something that we know about. There's a book out by a retired Australian Army officer, David Kilcullen, called The Accidental Guerrilla. And in this, he talks about his own experience in counterinsurgency, and he talks about the fact that depending on how you fight the war, you are creating more guerrillas rather than fewer, more insurgents rather than fewer. On the other hand, I looked at the picture that John put up, and there's nothing to indicate to me that that wasn't done by the Russians. It wasn't done by the Syrians, except if John says it came out of Afghanistan. That kind of narrows it down to us and the Taliban.
Well, I'd like to get back to Cambodia because that's where we started off with.
Well, in this particular picture here, Cliff, okay,
Yeah?
it's Afghanistan.
All right.
Afghanistan bombing. 10 people killed, dozens injured.
That-
So,
that-
okay, so they take your leg off. I'm sorry, no, we'll leave you able-bodied. They take the leg off of your kids, and your house looks like this. How happy are you? Here's a Hershey bar.
Right.
Okay, but maybe you've just justified what the Serbs did over there, which Bill Clinton couldn't stand. But I think the Serbs were with us in the Second World War. I'm not so sure Bosnia was.
But George, I've said this for years. When we blow up a town, you anger a lot of people for the rest of their lifetime.
Right,
And-
but that's what the Serbs did, but we didn't accept that. We basically said, let's bomb the Serbs, let's kill the Serbs.
Well, I think that we don't put ground troops in, and there's a very good reason for it. The Afghanis are extremely, I'm not sure what the word would be, virulent doesn't fit, but they're extremely, they give back what they get, is basically what I'm thinking of.
Now, here's a whoop shot that U.S. defeats imperialism. The Red Cross building destroyed by U.S. bombs. How the heck did we blow up a Red Cross building?
Well, John, that's a
It's
rhetorical.
a long time ago, 2001, but still, nonetheless. Let me show you one more. Do you think this guy knows where his bombs are going?
Yes.
So those bombs
Think so?
are all gonna be guided someplace nicely, we're only gonna kill the bad guys?
No, we're allowed collateral damage. The issue is, going back to that first photo, so some Taliban...
Which one you want, this one?
No, keep going back.
This guy?
One more, yeah. All right, so, no, forward again. So Ahmed goes out and he plants an improvised explosive device and he kills 3 American soldiers. We say Ahmed was a bad boy and it's war. We know where Ahmed lives somehow, and we go and we take his house down because Ahmed went and killed 3 of our people.
So if some drug dealers live next door to your house, they should break into your house, look for drugs, or the whole neighborhood? That's what we should do, blow up the whole neighborhood if you have a drug dealer next to you? One bad guy in your neighborhood?
May I interject? Regardless of what's going on, war is not the answer. Diplomatic solution is the resolution to all our killings.
Wait,
Come
wait.
on,
It all
camera.
depends on what the question is, whether or not
Diplomatic
war is
in
the answer.
World War II. Oh, what is it? Chamberlain came in and said,
Peace in our time.
Yeah, I would not compare
That was
myself to Will
diplomacy.
Chamberlain. When you negotiate your position from the weakness, you will always allow the oppositions to dictate the term and all of that. If you negotiate the diplomatic solutions from the strength, you will always come to an agreement. What Will Chamberlain did, it was a compromise, which I do not like the word compromise because you have to give in something, lose something in order to gain something. When you come to an agreement, it's like said, look, either we're all in this together or we're not all in this together. That's the purity of the solutions that we're looking at in terms of diplomatic. I've studied diplomatic, I studied war in my college year as an underclass degree that I had from Norwich Universities. So I have a firm understanding in regarding to that. I have always argued in my class is that a compromise never the solution to anything at all. And this is what happened in of every conflict, every war that ever happened in the world, because people, like I said, let's compromise on the certain things that we need to do in order to get along.
well, let me ask you this. Kosovo was part of Serbia, known to the international community. The United States interfered with that because there was more Albanians in Kosovo. The Albanians could cross the river. That's where they came from. They could just cross the river and go back to Albania. But they were in Kosovo. What did we decide in the United States? We've got to make an independent Kosovo. That's not the way Abraham Lincoln looked at it. Kosovo was like Virginia, and Abraham Lincoln wouldn't let Virginia go and secede. But the United States said, hey, we don't care you're in Serbia. We want to protect the Albanians.
Well, you just proved my point, that when you negotiate from a weakness standpoint, everyone will dictate their own term. If you negotiate it, like you said, Abraham Lincoln, and look at the Confederate armies and Jefferson Davis, and said, no, I will not accept those terms because we are a union and we need to act like a union. If you disagree with this,
Where are you going to go?
let's go at it. And that's exactly the decision.
Well,
Unfortunately, that decision came to a conclusion that cost a lot of lives.
Loads
Which it
of
should-
lives.
Yeah, exactly. So it should not have happened. If we could go in, like I said, Abraham Lincoln said, no, I will not accept those terms because we are a colonist. We are the United States. We need to act like one. We need to do everything as a one. We need to act like a unison of collected states. That's why we call it United States of America, the union that we need to unionize the entire colonies that we have gained the independence from the British already. Why do we want to fragment our ideology, the brotherhood that we have fought so hard to gain our independence?
Camera, I'm going to change the
Wait,
subject.
no, look, don't change it until
Why?
we
We'll be
solve
here
the
for
Tito.
we'll be here till 8 o'clock doing
We
the
need
same
to
thing.
talk- we need
We've
to
been
talk-
talking about it for 2 hours.
We need to talk about Tito before we go off of Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia,
You're just
Was
the
it-
guest. You're not a host today.
I should be treated with deference
I
because
treat you
I'm the
with
guest.
decency, Colonel, but
Deference,
I
I
don't
said.
want to go on to.
But the only reason
Full rank, sir. He's only a captain.
the only reason Yugoslavia
I won't attack camera for that.
the only
He
reason
does outrank me, but not by that much.
the only reason that Yugoslavia existed was because Tito was the strong man who held it together, and when he died, the
It's
fig leaf of
Then why do we take
Yugoslavia
sides,
disappeared.
Cliff?
Because we were trying to,
Hey, look at it, coming up on 7:30. All you guys staying here?
Yes.
No, nobody's got to go, right? Okay, good.
in Tito's case, he left Hungary, and it split in two. And that speaks to what Cameron was saying about the Union and Virginia. And
Wait a second, Jim, you're old enough to remember a country called Czechoslovakia,
I do,
So,
yeah,
and now it's the Czechs,
right,
and it's the Slovaks.
Slovenia.
yeah, right.
No, Slovenia is another country.
Oh, really? Wow.
So, getting back to Afghanistan just for a minute, the only point I wanted to make.
See, I told you we'd go to 8 o'clock with this.
The only point I want to make about Afghanistan is that we hold our troops because there is an international theory that the Afghanis will not fight fair, that they will protect themselves to the nth degree.
Japan did that.
And that's right.
Thank
And,
God for flamethrowers. I hate to say that. We had to put the flamethrower in the foxhole.
But the British used to say, we will fight anywhere but Afghanistan, because the Afghanis were so cruel, and that they massacred, they took the wounded that were on the field, and they didn't take care of them, they shot them. If you were wounded on the field in Afghanistan, they shot the British soldier who was wounded on the field in Afghanistan. And there was no chance for negotiation, there was no chance for anything. The Afghanis fight hard. And we underestimated them, in my opinion, with Obama.
Now I'm going to try to get back to something we were going to talk. Yes, John?
Unless you have something more important to talk about, can we talk about the city council agenda tonight? I want to have you wise men tell me how you feel about ward representation. But George, you had something on your mind. Let's talk about your issue first.
Jordan Geis was, I thought, going to be here.
He probably got the wrong date.
But what troubles me, and I wanted to get
He was going to bring Charlie Baker too, but
I wanted to get Cliff
Wrong
Clicker's
date.
thought about it. Why are they dissing Georgianne Magaha and Dennis Galvin? Why are they? Dennis Galvin sat here where Camera K is now, and I asked him a number of questions. Why? Did you vote for Charlie Baker? Yeah, he's got a great record. Why is Charlie Baker and Karen Polito trying to control the state committee, Cliff?
Because, hi Dennis.
Dennis was a great guy. Now, I have nothing against Jordan Geis. The question is, if you were going to vote Lowell, you'd vote for Magaha and Jordan Geis.
Yes. And
But-
that's what my letter to the Lowell Sun says.
Fine, but who paid for the Charlie Baker Karen Polito game?
You have to ask Jordan Geis that.
Well, I would have if they were here.
Oh, I'm sure there will be an opportunity for him to come up here to answer it.
But I mean,
Jordan Geis is supposed to be on my show. George, do you want to be on it with him, or? I mean, you can ask him any question you like, but.
I'm just concerned about Charlie Baker and Karen Polito, not Jordan Geis. If I'm
Charlie,
Jordan Geis, I'm thrilled.
Charlie Baker and Karen Polito are Republicans in a pack of Democrats, and they are trying to consolidate their support to secure their flanks.
Then
They're
what's
doing
wrong
what
with
you would
Magaha
do in that
and-
situation.
What's wrong with Magaha and Galvin that they seem to hate? Oh, I know I use the wrong word, hate. I'm sorry, but from what I read or look at the literature, they seem to hate McGaha and Galvin.
No.
I don't
Which
think they
Galvin?
hate.
Which-
I don't think they
which
hate
Galvin are
both
we
of
talking
them.
about?
It just,
Dennis Galvin, he's
Hey, I gotta turn the page, I gotta turn the page back. I got a text from Tom O'Brien. And it says, there's a difference between selective bombing, where you on occasion hit an unintended target, and
collateral damage.
and pattern bombing, where everything in the grid and intent to destroy everything you see, the bombing off Dresden.
talk
Cliff
about,
is-
Bombing of Dresden? Yeah.
Right about Tito. That's from Tom O'Brien.
okay. Well,
See, unless we can bomb accurately, we shouldn't bomb.
well, you can't say that. I mean, I understand the line of questioning. In today's society, in today's world, we have much more of a smart bomb for precision bombing, which we can select most of the time to
Why not all,
target.
why not all the time? We have plenty of dough.
Well,
Why not all the time?
Like I
Pinpoint
said,
bombing.
the question has two answers. If we're
Okay.
talking about previous wars, where
No,
the
let's talk
bombs-
about 2016.
2016, I'm sure we have a lot of guided guided missiles and so forth that we can be able to select the specific target. However, any discriminated location or targeted, you have to ask the people, the intelligence of those, the intelligent gatherers to pinpoint it where the target needs to be at. Whether it be a collateral damage, of course, that's the sadness of war, the sadness of fighting a war, of having so many weapons going around. There's always going to be collateral damage.
Well,
It is
the-
the sad stage
Well-
that innocent people die, but can we help it? Yes, we'll try to minimize that.
A third of aircraft sorties in the Middle East expend their weapons. The other 2/3 return home with their bombs. It's because we're trying to run a pretty tight kill chain from the intelligence to the decision maker. There's a lawyer involved in that, incidentally, and Air Force JAG.
Great
Someone
people,
like you,
great
someone
people.
like you, George, and to the decision and the permission to the
At 35
Pilot.
past, we're going to local politics.
pilot to drop his bomb. So the U.S. government is working hard on showing discrimination and minimizing collateral damage.
U.S. government is working, basically what I hear you saying is the U.S. government is working hard to cover themselves. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No. I think that I would say that the Obama administration is trying to make sure that we're not out there just indiscriminately bombing people, but that every sortie, every bomb drop is against a legitimate target and that it has been thought about and approved.
Speaking of President Obama, you think he'll get Guantanamo closed?
I hope not.
That's in the news this morning.
I'm speaking as a Democrat. I think Guantanamo serves a good purpose, and I think it should be safe.
Yeah, what's wrong with the jail down there?
I have no problem with jail being in Guantanamo. I do have a problem with if they were
In our 30 seconds
waterboarding
left,
something.
Cam is gnawing at the bit over there. What do
There
you,
you
on Guantanamo, you got something to say?
First and foremost, I find it rather refreshing for Jim Peters himself to say that he's hoping that Guantanamo Bay prison would not be closed. That is against the president who campaigned and demonized George W. from the beginning to have Guantanamo Bay closed in his first 100 days. And he had not lived up to his promise on that.
He's
And
a bad
everyone-
counter.
Everyone telling him that it's impossible to do so. And he's been releasing all of those folks which he deems as not a danger to the American servicemen and women overseas. And it turned out everyone that he put it back and gave it back to those countries turned out to become the head of certain terrorist organization to fight America again. I think the president needs to stop
We're 30 seconds over time.
telling the American people that he's going to close this, that he is a pacifist, And that's why he got what was it, the Nobel Peace Prize.
Which
He's
I don't
not-
think much of anymore.
Well, he's not a pacifist,
Hey,
regardless of what
hey,
he
look,
says.
I'm going to give George Anthony the last word on the international topic, and then we're going to move it on to local
Right.
politics.
He's not a pacifist, regardless.
Well, I'll pass my time.
Okay, then we'll go to local politics. Here we go, kids. Now,
All right, here's the
going around
problem.
going around the room here. All right. District representation. Mr. Peters, a good idea, a not so good idea, an okay idea. District representation, where it means you're going to
Like-
vote for
like
somebody
Bill-
in your neighborhood.
The old Alderman type of
And
deal.
you know, never mind old stuff. It means that if your neighbor runs for city council
Yeah.
and he only gets 3 votes, nobody else votes for the guy, he still gets a seat at the city council.
Okay, I disagree with district representation, I always have. I think the city manager form of government and the total city vote is a good idea. And I've always thought that since,
So not putting words in your mouth, but I'm hearing, leave it alone.
leave it alone.
Mr. Krieger, Colonel, Commissioner,
Cliff.
Cliff. Ever see Cliff's cool badge? Cliff's got a cool badge. Go ahead, Cliff.
You know, I have to apologize to Cliff because we call him Cliffy at home, and he doesn't like that.
All right, look I'm the only one on the planet that can call them Cliffy Doodles and get away with it. Cliffy Doodles, your turn. What do you think about?
John is a sniggle fritz. Anyway, moving
I'm
right
liking
along.
that. I'm liking that. Okay.
A sniggle fritz. I don't know what it means, but
This looks to be. This is from the Lowell Citywide Council Facebook page and neighborhood representation. What do you think about that? A district.
I like the idea, although I would not like it in our current configuration because it would only